Yes, good afternoon. So I'm just going to really follow on from what Mariette has been saying, and specifically about how the agency works with patients and healthcare professionals. I mean, in fact, we have actually been engaging with these stakeholders right from the beginning, but as the years have gone on, we've really refined and expanded this interaction, not only in the numbers of patients and healthcare professionals being involved, but also in the scope of involvement. And we're very pleased today to be able to say that we really do involve them across the whole life cycle of the medicines evaluation. It was previously mentioned, it is formally interaction with, on frameworks of interaction, which is adopted by our management board. Any organisation really representing EU patients or healthcare professionals can work with us as long as they meet a defined set of criteria which is in place, just really to ensure that we work with legitimate organisations. And today we have a huge network of organizations and individuals that we involve in our activities. So what really has the new legislation done to expand this interaction with these stakeholders? Well, as previously mentioned, with the introduction of the PRAC, this has allowed really full members of patients and healthcare professionals within the committee. And from the patient perspective, this really allows this representative to bring in the outside world, the real aspects that patients face on a daily basis into the scientific discussions. And similarly, from the healthcare perspective, to make sure that the impact of the regulatory decisions in the clinical practice is taken into account. And I think both parties also, it's important that they are there to ensure that when perhaps there are cases that we need to further consult with the wider community, they can then bring this up. So the Patients and Consumers Working Party and the Healthcare Professionals Working Party have been very much involved in the whole implementation of the legislation. They've taken part in all of the dedicated meetings that we've had over the last 2 years. They've been involved, for example, on the ADR reporting and the development of the guidance for patients. There was extensive consultation in terms of the additional monitoring and the introduction of the black symbol, discussions on the public hearings which will be coming up. And also it's very important that through them we've been able to further disseminate all of this information among the much wider European networks. So this is just a quick slide to show you the wide variety of organizations that we do work with. So this is the patients and consumers and also the healthcare professionals. Now, they are all European-wide. Some are umbrella organizations, some are general organizations, and some are disease-specific. And some obviously have national members as their members, and some have individuals. So, and as I mentioned, all of this information is available on our website if there's anyone is interested. So more in terms of benefit risk evaluation. So how do we involve them in the benefit risk discussions? Well, first of all, we do look what are the best situations that we can involve these stakeholders. Where really can they bring an added value into our discussions? They're treated like any other expert. So obviously they come into the room and they join in the discussions as anyone else does. But equally, they also sign a confidentiality agreement and declare any conflicts of interest which are assessed before they participate. We also ensure that they receive individual support, so it's very clear what is their role and they understand what is under discussion. I mentioned earlier on that they are involved across the whole medicine's life cycle, and here we can just see that they're involved right at the beginning in the medicine's development, and this is through their participation in the meetings with the companies on the scientific advice and protocol assistance. Then this goes right through to the actual evaluation, being both pre and post authorization. And this is namely through their involvement in the scientific advisory, or what we call the ad hoc expert group meetings, which are convened either by the CHMP or by the PRAC, where we have a small meeting of experts in the disease that is being discussed. And we always systematically also invite patients and healthcare professionals to participate in these meetings as well and hear from them what are their aspects. We also have ad hoc consultations directly with patients and healthcare professionals from different committees and working parties, again, when it's really felt that their input is needed. And I would also like to highlight that they are involved in all of the communication and information on medicines that we prepare. So they are reviewing some of the SPCs, they review all the package leaflets, DHPCs, and all of our safety communications. So when they're a draft, they are sent to them. And I can say that it really does make a difference, and probably about 40 to 50% of comments that we receive do make a difference to the final text. So it's a very worthwhile exercise. We are always, of course, looking how can we ensure, how can we better improve this, or can we further expand it. And a pilot which is about to start this month actually is to be involving patients in some of the oral explanations directly within the CHMP meetings, again, where it's felt that there can be an added value of involving them. And this is likely when there's going to be a probable negative recommendation on perhaps an indication where there is still an unmet medical need, or where we may be reducing an indication or withdrawing a medicine, suspending, something that's going to have a pretty high public impact. As I said, it's a pilot phase, likely to continue for a year. After that, we will do an analysis and see which way forward, and likely look towards a similar development, perhaps also within the PRAC. So I'm just going to finish with a couple of concrete examples just to show you how we are involving them. So here's one on a written consultation we had, and this is for Humalog. So this was an additional insulin strength, which was obviously very different than before. So the patients and healthcare professionals are used to a particular strength. So we felt it was very important to consult with patients and healthcare professionals to look really how we can ensure that we try and minimize the potential risk of medication errors. And we received very, very good input, which did lead the PRAC and the CHMP to request changes to the labeling, specifically on ensuring that there is a strong differentiation between the strength, and then this was subsequently implemented. Another one, it was briefly mentioned earlier on about the PRAC review on methadone, and I just think it was a very good example here where we could actually have an ex-addict who was able to come in, who actually has an organization helping ex-addicts, to really give us information on the current use and misuse of methadone, adherence or not to therapies, and their views of the associated risks. And all this information then goes together and helps to the committee to come with a much more rounded outcome at the end. Another one here, and this was specifically for healthcare professionals, and this was on the HES solutions and the potential with critically ill patients on kidney and mortality. And here we got specific nephrologists and intensivists who participated in the expert group meeting and very much gave their input on the safety and efficacy within the clinical practice. So again, very much sharing the day-to-day out there perspectives. Final one, and June did briefly mention it as well earlier on, but I think here this is an ongoing review into valproate, and we had a dedicated meeting with patients, so we were able to bring together patients, so from the epilepsy group, bipolar and migraine patients, but also organization representing the parents, carers, and those who've been affected by valproate. And it really was a very constructive meeting with everybody around the table, with the assessors, with the EMA as well. And on the one hand, they were able to share their experience with us, and we were able to share with them how our processes work. But also they gave very constructive information on how best to raise awareness in the future to try and avoid this occurring again. So just it was a very, very good example of this mutual sharing information around the same table. And I think that's, yeah, so I'm just really to finalize to say that, you know, we're very pleased to be able to say today that we have systems in place to involve patients and healthcare professionals in all of our work throughout the life cycle. And experience to date really shows that it does make a difference. Involving them in an operational level does have tangible effect in some of the outcomes. That way we can ensure that we bring the day-to-day life of patients as well as clinical practice from the healthcare professionals into the scientific discussions and make the outcomes much better and more rounded. So thank you.